Motivated by the violence of her own mother's rape and murder, and determined to make a change in the way America viewed race, Daisy Bates became a revolutionary civil rights activist and leader, making a significant difference in our state. Daisy grew up in the small town of Huttig, Arkansas. She was adopted by Oralee and Susie Smith when she was just 7 years old, after her mother's rape and murder by 3 men. Those men were never prosecuted, and this sparked a fire in Daisy that filled her with hate. Her father, Oralee, recognized his daughter's hate and gave her some advice that would later encourage her to be a leader for change. He said, "Hate can destroy you, Daisy. If you hate, make it count for something. Try to do something about it, or your hate won't spell a thing." Her first chance to do something was in 1941, when she and her husband, Elsie Bates, started their own newspaper called the Arkansas State Press. The paper centered around equal rights for all and became a voice for the African American community. Her influence on the equal rights movement earned her the title of president of the NAACP in 1952. It was during that time that Daisy put her focus on fighting for the same quality of education for all races.
DaisyBates!
When the desegregation crisis of Central High School occurred in 1957, Daisy's dedication to education made her the driving force behind the cause. She guided and advised the 9 students chosen to attend the all-white high school. She used her home as the meeting place for the Little Rock Nine, planning and implementing how desegregation would be carried out. She became president of the parent-teacher organization even though she did not have a child enrolled at the school. She knew she was an advocate for those 9 students, and she knew that her fight was not just for them, but for the entire African American race. Even though her home was often a target for those who were against desegregation, she never lost sight of her dream for equality, making her a pivotal figure in the civil rights movement and a fearless heroine of our state.
We didn't expect any trouble because it had been thoroughly thrashed out in court, and that we felt that the community had been pretty much prepared for this day and that we didn't expect any trouble. Suddenly all the pressure and the children facing the mob and going in that day, all that came back in great force, and the realization that I held the lives of 9 children in my hand. All this came down on me. And I asked why, why am I the person to have to do this? And have I done the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? But in the final analysis, I had to make a decision. And the final analysis, if one child died, I would be blamed for it. And this is what actually hit me right between the eyes. And this is when I looked at my life from a child and came back. And this is the first time in a long time that I had really relived the murder of my mother, the finding out about being a Negro, and all the fight and all the things. And suddenly I was real tired. I've never been so tired in all my life and suddenly all the years of struggle and all the years of fighting, I was tired. I was too tired to lift a finger because I relived the whole struggle, and I realized that I had been fighting all my life.
Born in 1914 in the small sawmill town of Huttig, Arkansas, Daisy's memory of turbulent bouts with racism and the irrevocable scars it threatened to leave in the Negro people fueled her fight for equality. Her fight brought her to Little Rock in 1941, where she and her husband, Elsie Bates, founded the Arkansas State Press newspaper. Little Rock became their battleground, and their weapon was their pen. United, They realized the power of the press as they fought for better jobs, equal pay, fair housing, and just treatment for their people.
But it was the battle for integration that propelled her into the national spotlight. As co-publisher of the state press and head of the local NAACP, Daisy well knew what the struggle for integration might entail. Every night, she and the 9 students chosen to integrate Central High School met at her home. Mrs. Bates became their rock, and her home their fortress. They experienced nightly attacks from segregationists wanting them to give up the fight.
Maybe we can escape without murder, without innocent people dying. This I never wanted. And the whole struggle never for an innocent person to die or get seriously hurt. This was my great concern. The safety of the children, the safety of the community. And then I wonder, am I doing the right thing? I was so afraid of actual murder. And I knew if anything happened to the first person that I was responsible for all this, they were saying, why don't you give up? You know, send them on back, send them out of town. Is the price worth it? We were fighting vicious forces, I mean, the whole state. And I just didn't see how we could win.
But it was the courageous actions and determined strength of 9 black students and their shepherd that set the precedent for integration efforts nationwide.
God, how much can a person stand? I just couldn't take it anymore at that moment. I felt absolutely there was no justice anywhere in America, and I felt that for children and adults to be subjected to this kind of treatment with no help forthcoming. And we had begged the president, and we'd begged for relief, and these children had gone into 2 mobs. What can you expect in America? So I cried. I mean, I was just hurt all over for everything and everybody.
On September 25th, 1957, the help that Daisy had prayed for came in the form of the 101st Airborne Division.
It was the disorder of the day before that led President Eisenhower to send in the troops of the 101st Airborne. State and local police were unable that day before to control a mob which reacted in bitter violence on learning that 9 Negroes had entered the school as students. School time, the morning of the 25th, troops of the 101st Airborne. A perimeter was established around the school beyond which we could not go. It was, I remember, quiet. I'm not sure most of us had yet absorbed the historic scope of this moment. At 9:25, with a military escort party, still in a strange quiet, 6 Negro girls, 3 Negro boys entered Central High School, a court order carried out with the federal government using its ultimate power.
We went out and drove around the town, and we looked at the troops, 101 surrounding the school. Then this is when I suddenly felt safe again. Not until I saw them surrounding that school did I feel a certain amount of security.
Daisy's passion for equality and love for children came from the death of her birth mother, raped and murdered by 3 white men when she was only an infant. Fueled by hatred, it was the words of her stepfather on his deathbed that transformed her hate for whites into the powerful force of love for the human race.
You're filled with hatred. Hate can destroy you, Daisy. Don't hate white people just because they're white. If you hate, make it count for something. Hate the humiliations we're living under in the South. Hate the discrimination that eats away at the soul of every black man and woman. Hate the insults, and then try to do something about it, or your hate won't spell a thing.
Daisy was determined to make her hate for injustice count for something in her life. And it did. It counted for everything. But she was willing to risk it all. The crisis at Little Rock cost Daisy and L.C. their livelihood. But not even the death of the state press could stop her. With the integration process proceeding in Little Rock, Daisy continued to fight on the national level. In 1962, she wrote her memoir of the Central High Crisis, The Long Shadow of Little Rock. She worked on the presidential campaign of Lyndon B. Johnson. She spoke at the 1965 March on Washington, and she traveled the country lecturing and promoting voter registration during the Kennedy administration. It was the death of her husband, and in the memory of his life, that Daisy felt the need to return to the beginning, where it all started for her and L.C. some 40 years earlier. Despite her failing health, she revitalized the state press in 1984, not just for her and the memory of L.C., but for the never-ending struggle for truth, justice, and equality. In 1988, she sold the state press. She has chosen to make her home in Little Rock, where she still lives in the same house that was once stoned and shot at. But her home is a little more peaceful now. It's filled with plaques and awards from the hundreds of organizations that have honored her and carry her name.
For any great warrior, there are medals, awards, rewards, and honors. Today, Daisy Lee Gatson Bates, we give tribute to you, our battle-weary warrior, for your tenacity, endurance, sacrifices, losses, and the unconditional love that you gave to the children of this city, this state, this nation.
Daisy Bates.
May God continue to bless you greatly.